When you're 20 and unsure of your place in the world, you assume the people around you are whole. Settled. Done becoming. I used to think that about her, Julia. My mother's best friend. The woman next door with the soft voice and unreadable eyes. It started the summer I came back from college. I had nowhere else to go. No job lined up. Just a suitcase and a guitar I barely played anymore. My mom offered me my old room, and I accepted with that kind of defeated gratitude that smells like failure. Julia lived alone in the house beside ours. She'd been there as long as I could remember, always part of the scenery. Long conversations over wine with my mother on the back porch, garden gloves always tucked into the back pocket of her jeans, her car spotless even when the world wasn't. I remembered her as just Ms. Grayson growing up. Then, somewhere along the way, she told me to call her Julia. It felt strange. Intimate. Like slipping into someone else's shirt. The first time I really saw her was a Thursday. Hot. Still. That kind of oppressive suburban summer heat that presses down on you even in the shade. She was in the driveway, bent over the hood of her car, sleeves rolled, eyes squinting against the sun. Her hair was up, messier than usual, loose strands clinging to the nape of her neck. There was something effortless about her, like the heat and sweat and grease just made her more real. "Hey there, stranger," she called out when she saw me. Her voice was low, warm, like coffee at 4 p.m. Back for good? I shrugged. Back for now. She gave a little smile. Not pitying. Not curious. Just present. "Well, if you're bored," she said, wiping her hands on a towel, "I've got a broken radio, too many tools, and a pitcher of lemonade." I don't know why I said yes. Maybe it was the way she said it. Like she'd already imagined me sitting there. Her garage was nothing like my mother's house, cluttered, yes, but lived in. Framed photos leaned against shelves, a record player sat under a dusty sheet, an old bike hung from the rafters. The lemonade was real, tart, not sweet, full of pulp. We talked while she worked, her sleeves pushed up to her elbows, fingers moving with quiet confidence. "You studying anything useful?" she asked. "Depends who you ask." "I'm asking you." I hesitated. "Creative writing." Her mouth quirked. "Useful for breaking hearts, maybe." That line stuck with me. The way she said it, not flirtatious, not mocking. Like she was remembering something. We started seeing more of each other. Not by arrangement. Just proximity. I'd come home late, and she'd be on her porch, glass in hand, music low. Sometimes I'd sit across from her. We wouldn't say much. One night, she handed me a book. Something old, the spine cracked, her name written inside in neat script. "You strike me as someone who reads too fast and too shallow," she said. "Try this." Slowly. I didn't know whether to laugh or be insulted. I read it anyway. Twice. It was in the small things that the tension began. The way she passed a cup to me and her fingers lingered. The way her gaze held a moment too long after a joke. The way I started noticing her perfume, not as a scent, but as a presence. Like something that arrived just before she did. We never talked about age. But it hung there, unspoken, the elephant in the garden, sipping lemonade with us. She had 2 decades on me. She knew who she was. I was still inventing myself. But there was something thrilling in being seen by someone who didn't need me. She didn't try to fix me. Or teach me. Or mold me. She just watched. And listened. And sometimes smiled in a way that made my chest feel tight. One evening, late July, the heat was unbearable. I came out in a t-shirt soaked in sweat, frustrated and wired. Julia was on the porch in a black camisole, hair down, one leg curled beneath her. She looked at me and said, "Come inside." I followed without a word. Her kitchen smelled like citrus and cedar. The windows were open, a slow fan turning in the hallway. She poured white wine into mismatched glasses and handed one to me. Our fingers brushed. Not accidental. Not anymore. She looked at me for a long second. Not smiling. Just reading. I looked back. Waiting. She said nothing. But something had shifted. I could feel it in the silence. The glass was cold in my hand. Her nearness was not. I couldn't hear anything but the hum of the fan and the sound of my own pulse. I left that night without touching her. But I thought about it the whole walk home. The way her eyes followed me. The way her breath had caught, just slightly, when I stepped too close to the counter. We hadn't crossed any lines. But the line had definitely moved. It rained for 3 days straight after that night. Heavy rain, the kind that turns windows into mirrors and leaves a hush on everything. I didn't see her. Not even through the kitchen window. I kept glancing toward her house like it might speak to me. But the curtains stayed closed. The porch stayed empty. On the 4th day, the sky broke open like a tired exhale, and the world shimmered with that strange, quiet glow after a storm. I stepped outside. And there she was. Julia, in her backyard, barefoot in damp grass, hair tied up, wearing a faded linen shirt rolled at the sleeves and cut-off jeans. She was trimming back her hydrangeas, blue petals already curling inward. I leaned on the fence. You disappear when it rains? She didn't look up at first. Just kept clipping. I listen better in the rain, she said. Less noise. Fewer expectations. Her voice was calm, but something about the way she stood, the slight tension in her shoulders, told me she'd felt the silence, too. A pause stretched between us. Then she looked up. You feel it too, don't you? She didn't say what. She didn't need to. I nodded. Later that day, I found myself on her porch again. There was no plan. No invitation. Just a kind of gravity that pulled me there. She opened the door before I knocked. I made tea, she said. Do I look like someone who drinks tea? I asked. She smiled, that half-smile she gave when I pretended to be braver than I was. You look like someone who's learning to. Her living room was dim, warm. Wicker chairs. A woven throw. A candle flickering in a saucer like it had been burning since the morning. She sat cross-legged on the floor beside the coffee table, barefoot again, loose strands of hair falling into her face. I sat across from her. Close, but not too close. The tea was herbal, earthy, slightly bitter. It lingered on the tongue. So did her presence. We didn't talk much. She liked silence. And I was learning to be okay inside it. But at some point, she leaned back on one hand, her shirt falling open at the collar, exposing her collarbone and a hint of skin that made my mouth dry. Do you ever think about what would have happened if we met at the same age? She asked suddenly. I looked at her, heartbeats suddenly louder. Do you? She didn't answer. Just sipped her tea, eyes steady on mine. That night, I dreamed of her hands. Not in any vulgar way. Just, her fingers brushing mine. Her palm against my back. Her nails grazing my shoulder. And waking up made it worse, because she wasn't there. A week passed. Then 2. The heat returned. She invited me over again, this time to help set up her old record player. I didn't know a thing about turntables, but I went anyway. She had a collection of jazz vinyls, most of them worn at the edges. Vinyls are like people, she said. They crackle more as they get older. But they play better. I knelt on the floor, adjusting cables. She knelt beside me, her knee brushing mine, her breath close. The record spun, a soft hiss, then the warm swell of Nina Simone filled the room. I sat back, legs stretched out. She stayed close. Too close. But I didn't move. She reached forward to flip the record, and her hand grazed my shoulder, fingertips, light and slow. I looked at her. She looked back. A silence passed between us like a question neither of us wanted to ask out loud. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You don't look at me like a boy. I'm not a boy. She didn't s. But she didn't kiss me either. It was the restraint that made it worse. The slow ache of almost. The tension that lived in the space between us, just barely kept in check. Every time I left her house, I felt like I was forgetting something. Like my skin remembered her more than I did. One night, I came home late. The neighborhood was quiet. Even the crickets seemed tired. Her porch light was on. I paused in front of her door. Inside, I could hear music. Faint. The same record. The same slow rhythm. I knocked once. She opened the door without a word. No makeup. Bare shoulders. Bare feet. The smell of jasmine and something smoky lingered in the air. Couldn't sleep, she asked. I shook my head. She stepped aside. I entered. The candle was lit. The room was dim. And the tension between us had finally stopped pretending to be something else. She looked at me for a long moment. And I didn't look away. Not this time. We didn't touch. Not yet. But we stood there, close enough to feel the heat from each other's skin. Close enough to hear each other's breath shift. She raised a hand. Brushed a hair from my forehead. You're too young for this, she whispered. I shook my head. No, I said. I'm exactly the right kind of young. Her smile trembled. And for a second, she looked scared. Not of me, but of herself. Then she turned and walked away, toward the kitchen. But her voice came back through the room, soft and steady. Come back tomorrow. At dusk. I left, heart pounding, skin electric. Whatever this was. It was no longer a question. It was a promise. The next evening, I was already dressed an hour before dusk. Nothing special, just a clean shirt, jeans, cologne dabbed low on the throat. But I spent way too long fixing my hair in the mirror, adjusting how the collar sat, pacing by the window like I was waiting for something inevitable. And I was. At exactly 7:17, she opened her side gate. Julia. She was barefoot again, her garden dress brushing just above the knee, thin straps loose on her shoulders. Her hair was tied back, a few wisps falling across her cheek, soft with motion. The light was falling sideways, golden, low, the kind of light that makes everything seem slower and more alive. She didn't wave. Just looked at me with that small, knowing half-smile. I stepped out without a word. Her garden had changed since I was last in it, or maybe I just hadn't really seen it before. String lights hung above the fence, unlit but catching what was left of the sun. The air smelled like mint and soil and something faintly citrus. A breeze moved through the lavender. Sit, she said, gesturing toward a weathered wooden bench. I sat. She brought wine again, but only poured one glass. She held it with both hands, sitting beside me but turned slightly away, as if facing the garden made things easier. I almost didn't open the gate, she said. I didn't respond. I waited. You make me remember what it felt like to want something. Without a plan. Without a timeline. Just, she exhaled, want. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were tired, bright, impossibly deep. I don't want to ruin you. I laughed, quietly. You're not ruining me. You're waking me up. Her breath caught. The distance between us felt electric. Not in a cliché way, not just desire. It was something else. A pull. Like gravity, but more precise. I reached out. Slowly. Deliberately. And touched the back of her hand. She didn't flinch. But she didn't move either. Just looked down at the point of contact like it surprised her how gentle I was. Her voice came out quiet. I've had lovers who never touched me this carefully. The wind picked up, cool and sharp. A warning. Thunder rumbled somewhere deep in the sky, slow, like something turning in its sleep. She looked toward the horizon. Storm's coming. Want me to go? She turned to me again. And something shifted in her eyes. No. Inside, everything was dim. The light was soft, the air heavier than usual. She lit candles again, low, flickering, golden. Rain started just as she closed the door behind us. It hit the windows hard. Sudden, insistent. Like the sky had been holding its breath too long. She moved through her house barefoot, lighting rooms gently, like she was afraid of waking something. I stood in the kitchen, unsure what to do with my hands, my body, my breathing. Then she called softly from the hallway. Come here. I followed her voice. Her bedroom was warm. Small. Personal. A low bookshelf, linen curtains, a lamp shaped like a shell. She sat on the edge of the bed, pulling the blanket up around her knees. You don't have to sleep here, she said, but I'd rather not be alone tonight. I didn't hesitate. I kicked off my shoes and sat beside her. The storm outside sounded like it had been waiting all week. Rain lashed the windows, thunder growled like distant drums. The power flickered, then held. Her candle glowed at the bedside table. We lay back, me on top of the covers, her beneath. Our arms close but not touching. I stared at the ceiling. And I could feel her body. Not touching me, but present. Tangibly near. Minutes passed. Then her voice, low and unsteady. Do you know what it's like to forget what your body wants? I turned my head. She was looking at the ceiling, eyes glassy in the soft light. I do, I said. But only before I met you. She blinked, slow, deliberate. And then she turned toward me. Come here, she whispered. I moved, slowly, carefully, onto the bed beside her. Our bodies aligned but not pressing. My hand hovered above her hip, uncertain. You can touch me, she said. Just, don't rush. So I did. Gently. Fingers on fabric. A thumb brushing over her waist. Her skin so warm under the thin material it almost burned. She closed her eyes. Her breath deepened. We didn't undress. We didn't kiss. But something happened in that bed, with our clothes still on and the rain still pouring, something more intimate than either of those things. Our bodies adjusted to each other. Like puzzle pieces finally finding where they belonged. Her hand moved to the back of my neck. Mine to her ribs. The space between us dissolved, one breath at a time. We lay like that until sleep softened our edges. And just before I drifted off, I felt her lips at my forehead. Not passion. Not possession. Just, surrender. Morning came quietly. Sunlight spilled in through the linen curtains, warm and soft like a secret just waiting to be uncovered. I woke to the faint scent of jasmine and the steady rhythm of her breath. Julia was still asleep beside me, her face turned slightly toward mine, eyelashes casting shadows on her cheek. The light caught the curve of her neck, the gentle rise and fall of her collarbone beneath the thin fabric of her shirt. I could hear my own heart pounding, louder than the silence between us. I didn't want to break the moment. So I just watched her. Watched how her fingers twitched against the blanket, how her lips parted slightly, like she was still dreaming of something beautiful. Then, she stirred. Eyes fluttered open, meeting mine before I could look away. For a second, we just held each other's gaze, words unnecessary, the space between us thick with something unnamed. Her hand reached out first. Slowly, reverently, fingers brushing my jaw, tracing the line from my ear to my chin. I leaned into her touch. My breath hitched. Then she smiled, not with her mouth, but with her eyes. The kiss came like a question. Soft at first, tentative, lips barely touching, tasting, testing. I responded in kind. The world narrowed until there was only her and me, the quiet sigh of the morning, and the steady beat of our hearts sinking. Her hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer. Mine slid to her waist, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath the thin cotton. The kiss deepened, slow, unhurried, full of promises neither of us dared say aloud yet. We broke apart, gasping softly, foreheads resting together. "Julia," I whispered. "Yes?" Her voice was husky, warm. "I don't want this to end." She smiled, and her fingers slid lower, tracing gentle circles on my back. "Neither do I." We stayed like that for a while, wrapped up in the afterglow, in the safety of being with someone who sees you and still chooses you. But the day was coming, and with it, reality. She pulled back slightly, eyes searching mine. "There's still so much we can't say. So many things that would make this complicated." I nodded. "But maybe it's worth it." She bit her lip, then shook her head. "Maybe." The hours that followed were filled with small, electric moments. Shared breakfasts in the kitchen, the brush of our hands reaching for the same coffee mug. Long talks on the porch, feet bare, the afternoon sun warming our skin. Every glance, every touch was a thread pulling us closer. A silent promise that what was between us was real, fragile, yes, but alive. That night, I fell asleep holding her hand. Not as a boy holding a woman, but as two people who had found something worth risking everything for. The evening was a slow burn, like the fading light brushing the sky in shades of pink and orange. I arrived at Julia's place, heart pounding not from nerves but from something far deeper, anticipation that hummed through every nerve ending. She opened the door before I could knock, barefoot and wearing a loose blouse that fell off one shoulder, skin glowing in the twilight. Without a word, she took my hand. Inside, the room was washed in warm lamplight, soft shadows folding into the corners. She led me to the couch, fingers trailing lightly along my arm, each touch sending sparks under my skin. We didn't speak much. Instead, the silence between us was full, like the space itself was charged electricity. She reached for me, slow, deliberate. Her lips found mine in a kiss that was both question and answer. Our hands explored cautiously, tracing paths over shoulders, down backs, lingering at the curve of a waist, the hollow behind an ear. Every breath was shared, every sigh a secret whispered between two bodies learning one another. Clothes slipped away with gentle urgency. Her skin was soft, warm, a map I memorized slowly, every rise and fall, every pulse beneath my fingertips. I felt her breath hitch as my hands found places she didn't know she missed being touched. We moved together, a rhythm born from trust, tenderness, and the electric thrill of forbidden closeness. Time blurred. There was no rush. No need to fill the quiet with words. Just the sound of skin meeting skin, heartbeats syncing, breaths mingling in the dim glow. Her fingers tangled in my hair. My lips traced the line of her collarbone, down to the swell of her breast. She shivered under my touch. Later, wrapped in each other's arms, the world outside ceased to exist. I traced patterns on her back, and she whispered my name, a soft, fragile sound that filled me with something I'd never felt before. For a moment, everything was perfect in its imperfection. When we finally drifted to sleep, it was tangled limbs and shared warmth. Not as a boy and an older woman. but as two souls that found something rare, raw, and unforgettable. The night wrapped around us like a whispered secret. Her apartment was quiet but alive, the soft glow of candles flickering against the walls, the faint scent of lavender mixing with the warmth of our shared skin. We lay on the bed, close enough to feel the heat radiating between us, yet with the tenderness of a first step into a world neither of us fully understood. Her hand found mine, fingers intertwining with a gentle certainty. I brushed a stray lock of hair from her face, watching the slow rise and fall of her breath, the way the light caught the curve of her cheek, soft and glowing. She looked at me, eyes deep pools of vulnerability and strength. No words were needed. None could capture what hung in the air. I leaned in, lips barely brushing hers. The kiss was slow, deliberate, a conversation without sound. Her breath mingled with mine, warm and sweet, a tremble of anticipation passing between us. My hands traced the outline of her jaw, down her neck, feeling the pulse of life beneath. Every touch was electric yet reverent. The silk of her skin under my fingertips was a landscape I explored with care, the delicate arch of her collarbone, the softness of her shoulder, the gentle curve of her waist. She responded with subtle shivers, her fingers curling into my shirt as if anchoring herself to this moment. Our bodies moved in harmony, a silent dance of discovery and trust. There was no hurry, only the slow unfolding of sensation, the build-up of a warmth that spread from skin to soul. The rhythm was ours alone, an intimate language written in touches, sighs, and lingering glances. Her lips found my neck, soft and searching. I felt the swell of emotion in her breath, the quickening beat of her heart beneath my palm. Time stretched and folded in on itself. In the stillness between moments, I whispered her name. She smiled, a fragile, radiant thing. "I'm here," she said. "Right here." We stayed like that, wrapped in each other's arms, the world outside forgotten. Two souls connected beyond age, beyond words. The light between us was something neither of us had expected. But both had needed. As dawn crept through the curtains, I knew that nothing would ever be the same. Because what we shared was more than passion. It was a quiet, electric promise.